much, and just the honesty and willingness to share your stories has been amazing. And I know I know there are similar stories of women and boys, young girls in Liberia who want to tell their stories as survivors and victims. And I know that when Layli and I go in December to Liberia, we're going to be planning to have a workshop focus group with LAA, the Liberian Airport Authority, to hear some of their other issues and concerns. But she'll also be preparing for the second phase of the workshop in 2022. It's really important to hear the voice of those who've been offended and hurt. And I know that this is just the beginning of our work, and I'm really excited. Thank you, Kate, and thank you, Linda, for your powerful, powerful presentation. For those of us who might not know how deeply impactful and important your stories are. Thank you so very much for sharing. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, and we're getting ready to do a wonderful wrap up, I wanted to see if Bisa Williams is on. She had some technical difficulties getting in. Bisa, are you on? I think we're trying to get her in. Let me be sure she's joining us.
She's currently in the attendees section under U.S. Mission Ambassador Bisa Williams. I know James can transfer her over to the panelist side.
Yes, so James, that'd be great. So, okay, is she there? Oh, there she is, wonderful. Madam Ambassador, thank you so much. Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, I have a little bit of a froggy throat. I'm gonna go ahead and move on. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I have the distinct honor and pleasure of introducing to you Ambassador Retired Bisa Williams, who is currently Senior Advisor for African Affairs at the U.S. Mission to the United Nations. We're so honored to have you. She is Special Advisor on Mali for the Carter Center, and since 2018, she has led the Carter Center's efforts as the independent observer for implementation of a peace agreement in Mali. She is also a senior fellow at Yale University's Jackson Institute for Global Affairs, where she teaches a course on peace building. Madam Ambassador's distinguished career in foreign service includes 2 years at the National Security Council in the White House, also U.S. Ambassador to Niger, Deputy Assistant Secretary in the Bureau of African Affairs, and Acting Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for Western Hemisphere Affairs, where she led the delegation, the U.S. delegation, to talks in Havana, Cuba, ending a 7-year hiatus of high-level direct discussions. Upon retirement, Madam Ambassador co-founded Williams Strategy Advisors, LLC, while chairing boards dedicated to public health, food security, environmental sustainability, and more. Madam Ambassador received her Bachelor's of Arts degree, cum laude, from Yale, and holds a Master's of Science in National Security Strategy from the National War College of the National Defense University, a Master's of Arts and an ABD in Comparative Literature from the University of California, Los Angeles. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Ambassador Williams to bring remarks and a call to action. Madam Ambassador.
Thank you so much, Honorary Consul Blanford. Really, Cynthia, that was quite extensive and a lovely opening. And I want to thank the previous speakers. I was listening to your really important presentations, and the focusing at the United Nations. They often talk about putting the human face on development, putting the human face on human rights, and certainly you have cast, you've really painted that in detail, not broad brush, and I really appreciate that. I really have the honor of appearing on behalf of our U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, Linda Thomas Greenfield. She is the former U.S. Ambassador to Liberia, a strong partner with former Liberian President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, and friend of the Liberian people. During Ambassador Thomas Greenfield's time in Liberia, our two nations worked together with the United Nations to support Liberia's transition as it overcame a deadly 14-year-long civil war, facilitated a series of free and fair elections, and successfully embarked on its democratic journey in a peaceful transition. That remarkable transition started with early, close, and frequent coordination. the United States worked with the UN and Liberia to make sure everyone stayed committed to the overall long-term goal of transition to a safer and more secure Liberia. That meant engaging frequently with civil society, local stakeholders, the UN, and international partners, both throughout the government and in the broader NGO community. Key to this vision was ensuring that the government of Liberia was prepared and was also building confidence in their own local security institutions and their services. In partnership with the United Nations and other key stakeholders within the UN system, such as UN Women and the UN Office on Drugs and Crime, UNODC, we must continue to build on these established strong relationships between our two nations and to address the still persistent heinous crime of human trafficking, also known as trafficking in persons, a crime that shatters lives, families, and dreams. We must also work together to ensure the safety and security of all Liberians victimized by human trafficking, including the most vulnerable. Who are the most vulnerable? Because human trafficking operates in darkness, it is difficult to get the exact numbers of individuals who have been subject to human trafficking. According to UN Women, the vast majority of detected trafficking survivors are women and girls, with approximately 77% being subjected to human trafficking for the purpose of sexual exploitation. UN reporting indicates that these numbers have likely increased during the pandemic. That is why the United States strongly supports UN efforts to integrate the engagement and consideration of women in all UN policy, and in particular on this issue. This two-day workshop, sponsored by the Wellesley Centers for Women and the University Consortium for Liberia, is an example of such policy in action. As in the past, collaborative efforts involving law enforcement, prosecutors, regional and municipal officials, and Liberian civil society, including community leaders and women's groups, will continue to be important at the local level. That's illustrated by the presence of so many different stakeholders who can make up an impact on human trafficking, and you all are here in our virtual room today. Policymakers, activists, survivors, and airport officials are just to name a few. We are pleased that Liberia is taking steps to commit to the long-term planning and hands-on training at the local level that is required to combat trafficking. Only through local efforts to ensure prevention and accountability, combined with national government support for successful apprehension and prosecution of perpetrators, can we eliminate trafficking of persons and protect the most vulnerable Liberians. Over the past 20 years, nearly every country in the world has enacted laws to criminalize all forms of trafficking in persons, accompanied by nearly universal agreement on the importance of implementing policies and protocols to detect, investigate, and prosecute human trafficking cases and to assist survivors. This is all thanks in part to the landmark UN instrument. In the late 2000, member states of the United Nations adopted the UN Convention Against Transnational Organized Crime and its supplementary protocol to prevent, suppress, and punish trafficking in persons, especially women and children. The Trafficking in Persons Protocol is significant for providing a 3 Ps framework: preventing human trafficking, protecting survivors, and prosecuting the traffickers. It's also noteworthy for providing the first universally agreed upon definition of trafficking in persons. Today, this protocol enjoys near universal ratification with 178 states parties to the protocol. Liberia was notably one of the earliest countries to accede to this protocol in 2004, and they acceded to it even before the United States did. UNODC is the guardian of the Trafficking in Persons Protocol, and it manages the UN Voluntary Trust Fund for victims of trafficking in persons, which supports NGOs to provide direct assistance to 3,500 survivors each year from more than 40 countries. The optional protocol to the Convention on the Rights of the Child on the sale of children, the child prostitution and child pornography, is another relevant and important treaty. It criminalizes those acts. It provides minimum standards for protecting child victims in criminal justice processes, and it recognizes the right of survivors to seek compensation. The optional protocol enjoys also near universal ratification with 177 states parties, including the US. Liberia became a signatory to the instrument in 2004. However, it hasn't yet become a party. We have encouraged the government of Liberia to give serious consideration to acceding to the optional protocol as well. Today, we are focused on transborder and specifically transatlantic trafficking. But it's important to point out that human trafficking in Africa has the highest prevalence of any region in the world, according to the International Labor Organization. UNODC's 5th Global Report on Trafficking in Persons states that more than 75% of identified trafficking survivors in West Africa are children. 75%. Human trafficking does not require movement across borders, and often victims are exploited within their own countries. As reported by UNODC, 99% of survivors detected in sub-Saharan Africa are exploited within their own country or region. This is also true in Liberia. Secondary impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic, including job losses, school closures, a rise in online activity, have increased vulnerability to trafficking, creating new opportunities for traffickers to exploit victims. Individuals who unexpectedly lose their jobs, children unable to attend school, and migrant workers are all increasingly vulnerable to exploitation. Meanwhile, enforcement has experienced mixed results in the wake of the pandemic. As reported by the U.S. Department of State's 2021 Trafficking in Persons report, Africa saw a significant decrease in trafficking convictions and numbers of survivors identified. However, there was an overall increase in trafficking prosecutions initiated, and more countries introduced new or amended anti-trafficking legislation. This could be a positive sign that countries are becoming more proactive and aggressive in their enforcement, but they do not yet have the training or the tools to build strong cases in certain contexts. UN Women estimates that women and girls may constitute up to 80% of the persons subjected to human trafficking globally. The same inequalities that underpin the crime of human trafficking also prevent women and girls from accessing protection and assistance. Female victims of human trafficking may be unwilling to come forward, as we've already heard, to the police due to a lack of gender sensitivity or knowledge of law enforcement agents. Many survivors are turned away and urged to seek mediation or other forms of settlement. Access to justice is further impeded by discriminatory laws and regulations. The engagement and empowerment of women can have a powerful effect in dismantling transnational criminal activity. Survivors of human trafficking require protection, assistance, and support, access to remedies, and safe return and reintegration into their communities with dignity and respect. Law enforcement agencies must be prepared and able to adequately provide survivors with the support and to work in border communities to mitigate the impact of these crimes. UN Women works at the grassroots level to raise awareness, to promote sustainable economic alternatives, and to provide linkages to services and paths to justice for women who have been or are at risk of human trafficking. UN Women also provides technical assistance and technical guidance and assistance to increase the capacity of frontline officers to meet the needs of women. Both UN Women and civil society organizations in the US support women's leadership and decision-making in policies and work to ensure laws at the local and national level integrate the perspectives of women and girls. In the US, law enforcement agencies and prosecutors protect survivors by adhering to constitutional mandates to protect the rights of survivors in 35 states, working with victim advocates and funding victim compensation funds through money seized from perpetrators. As economies reopen and travel and tourism resume, we must redouble our efforts to identify victims, hold traffickers accountable, and raise awareness. The 3 Ps framework that I mentioned earlier, prevention of trafficking, protection of survivors, and prosecution of traffickers, each require effective coordination among local, state, and federal authorities. A 4th P, partnership, is equally important in combating human trafficking, and our hope is that events like this workshop will strengthen our mutual commitments to work together with the UN, Liberia, and other partners to combat human trafficking. Partnerships are crucial in cultivating relationships among government entities, civil society organizations, and the private sector to lead on anti-trafficking efforts through coordination and collaboration. Today, we're all hearing different perspectives from government, private sector, civil society, and survivors on how we can collectively deepen our awareness of trafficking and take concrete actions to address it. By training tourism and transportation workers, travelers, and community members, this workshop emphasizes the role individuals play in recognizing the signs of trafficking and then acting by effectively responding to or reporting the crime. It's incumbent upon all of us to stand together against human trafficking, both in Liberia and worldwide, for this is a truly transnational crime. And we are grateful for your participation and your partnership in this effort. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Ambassador, for your insightful comments. We are so excited to have you. You are such a leader in your space, and I know now why the UN Ambassador Greenfield referred us to you. You are outstanding, and your comments today are very well received, and we look forward to working with you as we further our work in Liberia. Having said that, I'd like to now turn it back over to Layli as we are getting ready to close out for the day, and she's going to give us highlights for tomorrow's workshop. Thank you, Madam Ambassador. Thank you for your time and for your leadership today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Blanford, and also Ambassador Williams for that incredible overview from the UN perspective. I'm thankful to everybody for working our way through today, but of course we have tomorrow, and tomorrow's workshop builds on today's. We have another wonderful lineup of special guests and experts, and I wanted to let you know a little bit about it. I hope you'll be back at your respective starting time tomorrow, 8 a.m. if you're in the Eastern United States, 12 noon if you're in Liberia, and 1 p.m. if you're in Brussels. You can calculate your own time accordingly if you're somewhere else, because we will start bright and early with greetings from Vice President Jewel Howard-Taylor, who will share her perspective on the issue of countering trafficking in Liberia. We'll also have the opportunity to hear from Martin Hayes, who's the acting managing director of the Liberia Airport Authority, another very important guest. For our airline partner presentation tomorrow, we'll be hearing from Joeri Hendricks, who's head of security, crisis, and emergency response at SN Brussels. And so that will be another area where we'll have a great opportunity for conversation, questions and answers, and workshopping. That will be followed by a presentation by Deborah J. Richardson, who's the executive director of the ACLU Colorado, and also an anti-trafficking expert with years of experience having success on the ground. We'll also be hearing from Laura Newman, who's the director of Rule of Law programs at the Carter Center. And we'll be hearing from Professor Lenny Benson, who's a distinguished chair of human rights and immigration law at New York Law School. And we will close the day with remarks from Honorable George S.W. Patton Sr., the Liberian ambassador to the United States. We'll also share information about our own follow-up in the workshops that we'll be having in country in Liberia in early 2022. So don't miss it for tomorrow. Hopefully everyone got 2 calendar invites, one for today and one for tomorrow. If you didn't, please reach out in the chat and let ICON know so that you can be added to the list for tomorrow's notification. But much appreciation. I hope everyone learned something that you can take away. I hope that everyone's knowledge about how to understand and address trafficking is bigger and broader than it was before you entered today, no matter where you started. And I hope that your commitment to personally doing something from wherever you stand to make a difference is greater. So thank you very much. And I look forward to seeing everyone tomorrow.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for your participation. Have a great day.